Good afternoon, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome back to Ball Don't Lie, a show where we break down South Carolina sports.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, we're going to recap the conclusion of the men's and women's NCAA basketball tournaments.
Then we'll discuss the recent success of South Carolina's softball team.
Plus, a look at Gamecock Baseball series against #1 LSU.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. When you get it all right, you can hear that, and it just flies out of Founders.
And 18-year-old phenom Gigi Jackson has really turned his play up a notch. I'm almost 2 years older than Gigi Jackson. He's doing things I couldn't even dream of doing.
They're the Golden Gamecocks. They're just so much fun to watch. What a historic year for them.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
The Iowa Hawkeyes defeated the South Carolina women's basketball team in the Final Four.
Sports reporter Violet Raftery was in Dallas to see the action live. Let's check it out.
South Carolina's dominant, undefeated run came to an end tonight with the loss to the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Final Four. The Hawkeyes outscored the Gamecocks 77-73. Leading the offense for Iowa was Naismith Player of the Year, Caitlin Clark, who found open shots and teammates all night long. Zia Cook kept the Gamecocks in the contest, with Aaliyah Boston getting into foul trouble early. Cook led the team with 24 points. And Raven Johnson added 13 points, 11 of which came in the second half, but it wasn't enough for the Gamecocks to pull ahead. Clark finished with 41 points and 8 assists as the Hawkeyes cemented their victory. In the end, it marked the first loss for South Carolina this season under remarkable head coach Dawn Staley.
I take the good with the bad. Like I'm a sore loser, but I'm a gracious loser. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Iowa had a terrific game plan, and we didn't get it done. There were opportunities. There were 3 turnovers we had in a row that were somewhat of a game changer for us. That if we had them back, we could probably open up a lead that would have put us over the top, but wasn't in the cards. It was, we did that to other teams and we ended up winning. So we got to take it, we got to take the good with the bad. I'm never going to turn my back on the game of basketball. It's just giving too much to me. I'm still favored. Still favored.
JP, I was also in Dallas for that game, and let me tell you, it was such a heartbreaker to watch. But massive credit to Iowa. They played the better game, and they deserve to move on to the championship. Absolutely.
Caitlin Clark, she just had a tremendous tournament. Most points in any NCAA tournament in history.
Men's or women's.
First 40-point triple-double in either men's or women's NCAA tournament history. The most three-pointers in a women's tournament ever. She was unstoppable. South Carolina played their game. They just couldn't get shots to fall. Although Raven Johnson did have a good game from beyond the arc, shooting 3 for 6 from downtown, and controlled the boards until that final one. Iowa was able to corral, and that just kind of put an end to what was a tremendous season. 36-1, SEC regular and tournament champions. Hard to beat that. A lot of teams don't even get 30 wins in a row ever in the history of their program. So
absolutely.
We got 40. Hard to argue.
42 dating back to last year's SEC tournament championship loss to Kentucky. Riding a real high, the Gamecocks were. But, yeah, just an unfortunate performance. Raven Johnson, one of the Gamecocks who looked great, as well as Camila Cardoso, was fantastic on the inside. She had 14 points and 14 rebounds in the close loss, as well as Zia Cook. She was the lone Gamecock to make the all-tournament team, but she played really well, had 24 points, and was keeping up with Caitlin Clark in the first half. But in the second half, it seemed like the Gamecocks just didn't feed the hot hand.
Well, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games, and that's what Caitlin Clark did in that second half against the Gamecocks. You got to give credit to Cook. She played amazing. Boston, their final games as Gamecocks. So what's going on with who we're losing, who we're bringing in this year? Just get some preview for the fans out there.
Absolutely. That notorious Freshies class that came in and had an unbelievable record with only 1 home loss in 4 years. But the Gamecocks are set to lose the entirety of that class. So they lose Aaliyah Boston, Zia Cook, Letitia Ami here, as well as Victoria Saxton, the grad senior that came back. They're losing her. And Liv Thompson is also moving on as well, in addition to Bree Beal. I think that's that should be all of them. But, you know, this team, they're at the point where it's them losing this big of a class. Of course, it's going to hurt them, but we don't rebuild, we reload. And there's a lot of promise coming into this team next year. JP, you want to talk about who's coming in for the Gamecocks?
Yeah, the Gamecocks bring in 3 top 40 recruits. They had 4, but Chloe Kitts reclassified, joined the team this season. We got the 13th overall player in the class, a 5-star point guard, Malaysia Fulwiley, a 4-star guard who's the 25th best player in the class, Tessa Johnson, and then the number 40 prospect, a wing, Sanya Ja, who is a 4-star, star-studded class. Going to bring in, and I like that we're bringing in, I don't want to say shooters, but we watched some of their film. We've reviewed it, of course, as we do, but it was a ton of fun. I mean, the talent that's going to be on display for the Gamecocks, we're going to be losing some of our favorite players ever, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Dawn Staley and company are going to have a lot, and we're going to have some stuff coming back from this team too.
Absolutely, and I think one of those key things to mention, in that Iowa game, it seemed like guard play made all the difference. We just had, you know, kind of a more younger guards that couldn't compete with the shooting ability of Caitlin Clark. And being able to kind of solve that problem while still being dominant on the inside, it's great news for the Gamecocks. But speaking of that championship game, in a battle of 2 teams searching for their first women's basketball title, it was the LSU Tigers led by Kim Mulkey who would defeat the Iowa Hawkeyes. As I just mentioned, LSU, their first title in program history, they won by 17 points in a 102-85 victory, an absolute high-scoring game. They finished the season 34-2 with one of those losses to the Gamecocks. And how about Angel Reese, JP?
Yeah, she had a tremendous tournament. As you see there, won the Most Outstanding Player award. She put up 24-12 against the Virginia Tech Hokies in their Final Four victory, and then 15-10 against Iowa. But Alexis Morris, 19 of her 21 points, came in that second half of the national championship game, dished out 9 assists as well. It seemed like every time Iowa would go on a run, try and close the gap, LSU would just stiff arm them with another big Alexis Morris shot or an Angel Reese bucket, and it just wasn't anything that Iowa could really do about it down low.
Yeah, and hard not to mention Jasmine Carson as well in her last ever game in the purple and gold, coming off the bench, scoring 22 points, 7 for 8 shooting, and she was perfect from the field in the first half. And it looked like Iowa, they were so close to kind of clawing back that lead in the first half, and Jasmine Carson just couldn't miss.
It just looked effortless for LSU. I mean, Iowa, they had to fight and claw for everything. Their sets were getting blown up. They just had to basically play perfectly to get a bucket and get within 5 or 8 points, and then LSU would come right down and do something effortless. Get it down low on the low block or swinging around for another great shot.
And LSU, this is the best I've seen their team play all year, and this may be the best performance I've seen from a women's basketball team all season. I mean, Iowa did not play bad by any means, but LSU played a perfect game. I mean, everyone on their team was hitting shots, they were moving the ball well, playing hard defensively, and it was just a sight to see.
Yeah, I think that was the most points scored in a women's national championship game ever. They broke a record set by Texas about a decade or so back. So it was just, while it was a tough end for the Gamecocks, it was an electric end of the season for women's college basketball. But also in the Lone Star State, the men's Final Four wrapped up this weekend with the UConn Huskies taking home their 5th title in school history. And as we can see, Spencer, they have not been a stranger to the dance in recent years. 24 years, 5 titles for the Huskies.
Yeah, and you know, seeing a team be so successful and all in less than 25 years, already establishing themselves as a current blue blood, I would say, JP, as they dominated not only in the title game, winning 76-59 over the San Diego State Aztecs, but look at their margin of victory, 20 points in every single game this tournament. They looked unstoppable.
Yeah, that's 4th all-time since the NCAA tournament expanded to 64 teams back in 1985. But Adama Sanogo, man, him and Jordan Hawkins were electric as a duo. Sanogo, a big man, of course, put up 20 and 10, 2 blocks against Miami, 17 and 10, and a block against the Aztecs. I mean, San Diego State's pressure defense completely trying to eliminate inside the arc. They just couldn't stop him. But it's not just what Sanogo can do inside. We saw him against Miami open up the game with 3 threes as well. Tristan Newton had a great game all around for the Huskies. And as you can see right there, the Big East, man, they lost a lot of teams in conference realignment to the ACC, to the American. But in the last 20 years, 7 championships, 2 by Villanova, 3 by UConn, 1 by Syracuse and Louisville. They can get it done from anybody.
They absolutely can, and you know, we heard Rick Pitino in his post-game press conference with Iona after their first-round matchup with UConn. He said this was the best basketball team he's ever played, and let me tell you, the Huskies looked the part throughout the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, Pitino, he knows ball, and he's going to be joining the Big East, coaching the St. John's Red Storm. The Big East, wealth of coaching talent, man. You got Ed Cooley leaving leaving Providence to take the head job at Georgetown after Patrick Ewing was fired. You got Kim English taking over the head job at Providence, and then Rick Pitino coming in. I mean, top to bottom, I don't know if there's a better conference in college basketball coaching-wise, and that's not even getting to how great of a talent they have player-wise as well.
And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention how good one of those Final Four games was with San Diego State and Florida Atlantic. That was one of the best tournament games I'd say we've seen all season. One of the best in recent memory as well, with San Diego State edging them out on a buzzer beater by Lamar Butler. And what a shot that was from him.
He went coast to coast, off a missed free throw. You know, the commentators were kind of bewildered that San Diego State didn't take a timeout. But Butler, he's got that clutch gene. He's made some big shots for them this season. He went all the way down, corralled the rebound, made a quick move in the elbow, shook his defender, which Florida Atlantic played a great defensive game as well. This was a very much more high-scoring game than I anticipated with San Diego State's defense, but Florida Atlantic was able to push the pace at time, but it came back to bite them as they just couldn't really hang on defense right there at the end. Butler, great shot. What a great look. What a great move by him. That was just one of the best give me the ball, we're going to go win this game moments I've seen in college basketball in a very long time. But Nathan Mensah as well for San Diego State. He was a monster down low. One of the best shot blockers I've seen in the NCAA tournament in a long time.
Led the tournament in blocks this year.
Indeed. He looked a lot like Casey and Defo did last year.
Oh, what a...
But just what a performance by those two mid-major programs, Florida Atlantic and San Diego State, their first Final Fours ever. And I'd say they more than looked the part. Absolutely.
You got to give some credit to Miami. They did make a very surprising Final Four run. I don't think many people had them in the Final Four, but they did, you know, other than basketball guru over here, but they did look really good, but it just, UConn, they just looked overpowering that whole game. Miami couldn't really get their offense going, couldn't really establish that pace that we had seen accustomed from them in the tournament, and UConn, it's not, you know, Adama Sanogo, of course, looked incredible. Jordan Hawkins looked great. But it's Donovan Clingan. You know, it's not just them. It's Tristan Newton. They have just a group of guys that can get it done. They play with such pace and such ferocity. It matches Dan Hurley perfectly.
Exactly. Danny Hurley, he's a guy, he's going to get everything out of his players. He's going to make his players play his way. That's just the way a lot of those Big East coaches are. They're fiery. They're going to get after it. Their players love them because they're like that. They're so personable. It's just such a fun conference. And, you know, you do kind of like to see teams that are so synergetic make it to the top because it's just the brotherhood, the storyline. UConn started the year great, 14-0, hit a stretch in Big East play where people were like, well, maybe they're just not built for it. And they answered the call, I'd say, more than well.
Absolutely, and that's going to wrap up our basketball content for today. But after the break, we're going to take a look at Gamecock softball and their impressive series victory.
And man, Gamecock softball took 2 out of 3 from the 11th-ranked Florida Gators this past weekend. Here's how they did it.
Yeah, we've seen this team take a big jump here in SEC plays. They've kind of struggled in recent years, but definitely starting on the right foot this season.
Yeah, only 4 conference wins last season for the Gamecocks, already matched their season win total from last year. It's been a little bit of tough going for the last 4 years for this program, but Coach Smith, man, Dev Smith has been amazing. Her 400th career win. She's gotten the Gamecocks back to where they need to be. Another tough test against a ranked opponent in the Alabama Crimson Tide. Lost game 1, but the Gamecocks
2-1, still a close affair.
A close game. Really kind of surprisingly low scoring for softball, especially for a team like Alabama that scores a lot. But South Carolina's pitching and their defense, man, they can really get you. They can force a game to be low scoring like that.
Absolutely. I love the style of play. As you see, they lead in steals, in fielding percentage, and they've got the #1 pitcher in Caper 7 with Donnie Goborn, who almost no-hit the Florida Gators, came down to the very last out at Beckham Field, and that would have been something. A top 15 ranked team, being able to almost no-hit them is so impressive, and she's been unstoppable this season.
Yeah, this team, I mean, they've really bounced back from the adversity of the last 4 years, and you can't say enough about the players, the coaches, the staff, that entire program of being able to just kind of rebound. I mean, a lot of people, they only won, I think, 9 games like 2 years ago. They won 27 last year. They're already at 27 wins this year, 27-10. Looking to get back into it in SEC play. They're 32nd in RPI. Looking to definitely try and make it to the big dance, something they haven't done in quite some time.
Yeah, and their style of play, as I was mentioning earlier, they have a lot of people who are really good at getting hit by the pitch, weirdly enough. You know, they'll lean in, but anything to get on base because they're so good at stealing, they're so good at defense. So Jordan Fabian, Natalie Morgan, and Jen Cummings all in the top 25 in hit by pitch ratings in the nation. And this team, if they can just rely on their pitching and their defense and just get on base and try and, you know, just get the runner around, you know.
Yeah,
they
timely hitting.
They don't, you know, kind of opposite of our baseball team. They don't need the long ball that much to get it done.
Yeah.
But they're finding success.
And the SEC is such a tough softball conference. You just love to see the Gamecocks going out there and competing. I mean, even when they lose, it's close, like the Alabama game. We'll see if they can bounce back, take this series against Alabama, but something big's going on in Columbia this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Moving on, here's how Gamecock Baseball has looked in recent weeks.
Whew. Already surpassed their win total from last year in 31 games. The Gamecocks sit at 28-3, number 6 in the country, 9-1 in SEC play. What a mark that is, having one of our best conference starts in a very long time, but even better in the RPI, man.
And would you believe it? If you told anyone before the season we'd eclipse our win total from last year at this point in the season already, only 27 wins last season, already at 28 after taking game 1 against LSU last night, 13-5. But it's hard not to mention two of the most important players on this team, first baseman Gavin Casas and right fielder Ethan Petrie. He's been amazing this year as only a freshman, as you see there. He's been named Mid-Season Freshman of the Year by D1 Baseball. But this team's been good, not only in their midweek games recently, sweeping Mizzou, taking 2 of 3 against Mississippi State, just having a fantastic season so far.
Absolutely, and like a lot of teams are struggling with these midweek games. And South Carolina's going out against these talented teams like the Citadel, like South Carolina Upstate, and they're coming away with wins. They're coming away with big wins. But man, Casas and Petrie, 2 insane players, both 15 home runs. Petrie with 50 RBIs, Casas with 33. They are worthy of the Golden Spikes Award watch list. Petrie, mid-season Freshman of the Year, according to Perfect Game in D1 Baseball. I mean, this South Carolina team is just insane. And it's not just the hitting. We're so good at pitching. We're so good at getting on base. I mean, much like the softball team, we get hit by pitch a lot. We lead the SEC in walks and hit by pitch and on base percentage. And so we're on base when we're launching balls 400 feet, 380 feet, bat flipping, bat tossing, jaw into the dugout. Great teams taunt. South Carolina is a great team, and I'm so excited. But they're going up against a great team right now at Founders Park. The LSU Tigers, ranked 1st in the country. I mean, there's no team like them in college baseball right now, except maybe the Gamecocks. Let's take a look at how the Tigers are coming into this series.
Yeah, they certainly, I mean, they're the #1 team for a reason. They did fall last night to the Gamecocks. And, you know, don't have quite the SEC resume that the Gamecocks do. However, they're #1 in batting average, 2nd in runs per game. They hit the long ball well, top 15 in the nation. #1 in on-base percentage and number 3 in slugging. And they can do it with a couple of different guys giving them production.
Absolutely. I mean, Dylan Cruz and Tommy White, Tommy Tanks, as he's better known, transferring in from North Carolina State. I mean, look at those OPS numbers. 1.564 for Cruz, 20 extra base hits, 35 RBIs. White, a 1.219 OPS, 10 home runs, 50 RBIs. And the starting pitching is really good, too. I mean, weather kind of played in our favor last night with the Paul Skeen start getting limited by the weather. He came into the night with a .81 ERA and 44 1/3 innings pitched. But look at those pitching metrics, too. 14th in ERA, one of the best strikeout units in the country. Man, the walks and hits per innings pitched, hits per 9, and they shut out teams. They're not shutting out the Gamecocks, of course, but
might be an impossible task, but the Tigers certainly are a loaded team on both sides of the ball, and it just speaks to how good the SEC is. I mean, the teams that not only come to Founders Park this year, but the teams that the Gamecocks have to go and travel to. I mean, it's such a loaded conference. As you mentioned, we've mentioned in previous episodes, even teams like Mizzou and kind of Alabama, teams you wouldn't necessarily think of as baseball powerhouses, putting some solid teams together.
Absolutely. I mean, and LSU, their conference record doesn't look that great because they started off their conference play playing Arkansas at home, going on the road to Tennessee, and now going on the road to Arkansas, playing Tennessee at home, now going on the road to Columbia to take on the Gamecocks. That's a murderer's row, man.
Let me tell you, that's 3 series I would not want to play myself. That is a
Not even
tough
once
stretch.
in a season. 3 times in a row? And they're more than up to the task. Can't count out the Bayou Bengals. They're tough, man. And they lost Paul Manieri to retirement, lost some guys to injury last year, but they brought in the recruits, brought in the transfers, brought a lot of guys back. Preseason #1, they've held on to that. We'll see if they can bounce back, take this series, but get a little ahead of ourselves anyway.
But here is a preview of how the series has started and what to look for in the ongoing doubleheader right now at Founders Park.
It truly is a clash of the Titans, man. So the game 2 in that doubleheader, or the game 2 of the series, game 1 of the doubleheader, going on right now over at Founders Park. Starting off the game for both teams was Jack Mahoney and Ty Floyd, 2 junior right-handed pitchers that have been really good for their ball clubs.
Jack Mahoney started the game really well today as well. I saw he had a couple strikeouts last time we checked the score. But as these teams as a whole, it's the first time they've met as ranked teams since 2013. Both teams kind of on the come up, especially for the Gamecocks. Had a rough stretch of years there. But being able to put together the season they've had, I mean, the future does look bright for both teams.
Yeah, and historically speaking, the Gamecocks took 2 out of 3 from the Tigers in 2013 that time. But of course, as you see with Game 3, which will occur 1 hour after the doubleheader first game concludes, Gamecocks to be announced. Noah Hall dealing with injury, so good to see how he can if he bounces back at all. But of course, we don't want to rush it. You can't risk a pitcher getting hurt just to win one series. That's why you got to take care of business when you have Jack Mahoney on the mound. But man, what about Will Sanders last night? Starts against Mizzou, gives up 5 earned runs, 6 walks, doesn't even go 4 innings full. Comes back against the best team in the country, took a series off against Mississippi State, got right, threw 3 innings before the lightning delay, 4 strikeouts, 0 hits, 0 walks, 0 earned runs. That's what you love to see out of a man who's faced some adversity in his career, had just 2 great seasons to start out with, coming into his junior season, getting hyped up MLB draft prospects, and having a rough go of things. But also credit to Mark Kingston and company. You give him this time off, gets right, you trust him to go out there on the bump against a guy with a .87 ERA, #1 team in the country, one of the best offenses in college baseball, and he plays like that and just really holds it down and allows you to get out to an early lead.
And this is the Will Sanders that Gamecock fans and, of course, scouts are used to seeing from the previous seasons, but he looked phenomenal last night. We were watching the game yesterday, and let me tell you, it was incredible, not only for his pitching performance. How about Ethan Petrie?
Oh, man.
He is incredible.
That was long gone into the night.
Whew. And it just seems like every time he's up to bat, somehow the bases are loaded. Founders Park is rocking, and he almost went for 2 grand slams last night. Every time he makes contact, I mean, we were about to backflip. It's just incredible stuff to watch. But it's not just him, of course. The rest of the team getting it done. Braylon Wimmer with a home run last night. And it was just an all-around team win for the Gamecocks.
And the transfers, I mean, Will McGillis lost to injury with a broken arm during that Mizzou series. He's going to be missed. But what about Dylan Brewer, man? The outfielder from Clemson came in. Expectations not very high. Did not have a great offensive season last year. Kind of seen as a defensive specialist out in the outfield. He's had a great year from the plate, man. His OPS is up over 300 points. He's got an OPS north of 1.0. Just you really like to see stuff like that of a guy late in his career kind of blossoming, getting a change of scenery, following his coach, Monty Lee, and reaping the rewards of it. But man, it's not just South Carolina and LSU this weekend in college baseball, ain't it? Some series started this past Thursday due to weather. You got Louisville versus Boston College. You got Miami versus Virginia. Tennessee versus Florida. The Gators, a team that will be coming to Founders Park
in 2 weeks. Yep.
In 2 weeks. That's going to be a matchup of the century. Tennessee, of course, defending SEC champions, pegged as one of the best teams in college baseball history last year. But
they ran into the Fighting Irish. Was that right?
I do believe that did happen down there in Knoxville, Tennessee. But then the Mizzou Tigers looking to bounce back, get back some momentum, going up against a Vanderbilt team, undefeated in conference play. That was a really fun game to watch yesterday. The Commodores escaped 7-6, but it's not just the SEC, man. You got, like I said, Virginia and Miami, 2 of the best teams in the ACC, top 20 teams. Louisville and Boston College, 2 top 15 teams. #2, Wake Forest, hosting their hated rival, North Carolina State. College baseball's in good hands, man. It's been a lot of fun this season, and we're just getting into the thick of things.
Certainly is, and I know I can't wait for tournament play to start. Some of these regionals are going to be so stacked, and you know, they just might be hosting one down the road at Founders Park.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just these big conference teams, too. Of course, you got like the Big 12. You got Texas, Oklahoma, TCU, Oklahoma State, and all them, and Kansas State, and West Virginia. What about the Mountaineers being ranked? But you look in the rankings, the Campbell Camels, Florida Gulf Coast, Iowa, Oregon. Oregon, you know, to be fair, Oregon's not a bad baseball program, but they've had a couple tough years. But I mean, in the top 15, Boston College? Something about them Catholic schools up north. They're getting right for baseball. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because the Red Sox suck. But that's all we got for you today. We'll be right back after this short break to wrap up another episode of BDL.
And that's going to wrap up this episode of Ball Don't Lie. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
And heading into the 7th inning of Game 1 of the doubleheader, the Gamecocks lead the Tigers 7-3. To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtvonline.com. For SGTV News 4 Sports, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend and a happy Easter, Carolina. Forever to thee.